A figure is worth 1,000 words. And so today I'd like to cover figures and how you can put them in a Typst document. I would like to discuss the different file formats that are supported, how to reference them and control their placement. I'd also like to talk about some nuances with double column formats. And I'd like to also show a couple workarounds for subfigures and spanning figures, figures that span multiple columns when double columns is being enabled. And hopefully you'll find this helpful. And so with that, let's get started. So first thing I want to do is create a project. We'll call it example 4. And the first thing I want to do is upload some figures. So let's go to Explore Files and click the Upload button. And I've made a number of figures here. So I'm just going to select them and upload them. One thing that's interesting is, so I have a PNG, that's the logo that I use all the time, BamDone. I also have a GIF, a JPEG, a PDF, a PNG, and SVG. And so if you have a PDF image, it will be converted to SVG. So one thing to be sure to check is kind of the quality or what happens when that conversion is done. Currently, Typst does not support PDFs, so you'll have to convert them. And this is just one way to do that. So we'll upload these files. And so they're all here. If I click on them, the SVG kind of shows all the text that makes up the SVG, the PNG, and these other image formats. You can see various properties about them. So the GIF, it's nice. It has a transparent background. The JPEG does not. It's a rastered background. The PNG has a transparent background, and these SVGs are nice because they're scalable graphics. And we'll talk a little bit about that, hopefully, in this course of this. So let's do a figure example. So in our example, let's do some block text. And also I want to set the page paper to be US letter. All right, so that way I'm familiar with the page size. And I'm going to minimize this Explore bar. Okay, so right now we don't have any figures, but they're sitting there, and that's okay. We'll make a reference here. So let's add a figure. So we go hash figure. And if I hit enter, it auto wants to add the content for the caption. So I'd say the BamDone logo. Add a comma. All right. And what I want to do is add the image, which we're in code mode, so we don't need the hash symbol here. PNG. And the width, we can make it 1 inch. And so here's an example. So straight out of the box, this is really simple. I've got a figure, right? I've got essentially a way of captioning it, and it's sitting on the page. Just like with other content in Typst, we can add a label. So let's do fig, and we'll call this one BamDone. And so now I have a label. So that way, if in content I want to refer to it, so I would say, we'll get rid of this text. So the figure above is the logo that I always use. Okay, and it is in hat. And look, it shows right here. The figure and the caption name is here. So I click it and I hit period. And there it is, right? So it says there's the text. I've referenced the figure. And I'll do some lorem just to add some text here. Okay, so that's an example of just like placing the figure and captioning it and labeling it. But maybe you want to change it so that way it doesn't say figure 1. Maybe I want to use a shorter name format. So in that case, you need to adjust the supplement. Supplement is what the text calls it. So I could say set figure, and we'll do supplement, and I'll do what I want to call it. I can call it Apple, for example. So Apple 1, right? Apple 1, right? It's going to use whatever I put in here. So I want fig period, And so now fig period 1 and fig period 1. So that's nice. The supplement's taken care of, and it shows essentially the figure. So the next thing I'd like to do is talk about placement. So figure placement. So let's do an example, bottom placement. So say I'm writing a document and I didn't want the figure to appear exactly here. I want it to appear at the bottom of the page. In which case I can do figure. So okay. And I can do an image, which I'm in code mode again. I can do image. And let's do the, which since we know PNG works, we'll do image dash png.png. That's the PNG that I have. And right now that's the actual size of it. So I can do width, we'll do 3 inches. But look, it's not on the bottom. There's all this extra space. Okay, so, let's add a caption. We can do caption. A PNG image. I don't know. So there it shows, there's my caption, and there it is. Now I want to make sure it's on the bottom, so I could say placement, and I'm going to choose bottom. And now it automatically shifted it to the bottom of the page. That's very nice. Well, if I make it 2 inches, you'll see that it's there. If I comment this out, right, it places it where it was, right? And so that's a nice example. We'll do a page break so that way we can do our next example. So let's say I want example top placement. So now say that I want a figure to be on the top page. In this case, we do a figure again. We're going to type this a lot, figure. In this case, we're going to do, let's do a GIF or GIF, depending on your pronunciation. And in this case, the name of it is GIF. And we'll do width 2 inches. Okay, see how it's on the bottom. But remember, we wanted placement to be on the top. In that case, PL placement top. When you do that, it goes above all the text. So no matter how much lorem I add, right, it will force it above everything on the page and put it at the top of the page. So I turn that off, it puts it underneath the lorem. Lorem is just made up text. If you're new here and you're not sure what that is, that's just made up garbage text. But essentially I can do this, right? And notice that there were some spaces here. I bet if I got rid of these spaces, no, because the figure breaks the content. Those paragraphs are still going to exist. So this is a way to make it the top. Now, let's just copy this whole thing just for the sake of time. And now instead of doing a GIF, let's do a, we'll do an SVG. Okay. And now we're going to do a new page here. Page break. Okay. So now I'm on a new page, just the exact same thing. In fact, I didn't even update, so I need to make this SVG. Okay. Maybe it's an SVG. Okay, so an SVG image is now on the top, but we can get rid of that and we can do auto. Okay, so auto is basically going to place it where it's most convenient in the text. And so this would be like, for example, I just need to save as much space as possible. It would do like top, then bottom, right? It would force it to one of those directions. And so a way to look at this would be saying, let's just do, if I have lots of text, so say I have like a lorem of 200 and a lorem of 90, and in between I have this figure, it would push it to the bottom because it's more convenient for space savings to place it on the bottom, right? So auto will pick for you automatically placed on the page. Auto will place it wherever it thinks is convenient. So I did an SVG, we did a GIF or GIF, we did a PNG, right? And so we could do a couple other examples. But essentially, you're getting the idea here that I can force the placement. And we already demonstrated how to do a caption, so that's nice. So now let's talk about double column. Because with double column, the line width is a little different, the way it handles it. So let's do a new page. Oops. Down here. Page break. So we'll force a new page. Okay, so the first thing I want to do when I go to columns is I'm going to set the page columns to be 2. That way when I do lorem, let's do a lot of it. I do 400 lorem, you see the page is broken into 2 sides, okay? So if I'm doing a figure, so let's do a figure caption. We'll do another BamDone logo, why not? Okay. And we'll add some more lorem. Okay, so one thing to understand here though, in the columns, is that in the figure, I can force its width, but I can also make it a percentage of line width. So I can do 100%. And this will fill from the left and right. It will fill the entire width of the page. So if that's something you want to do. If you wanted to be verbose about the placement, going back to when we were doing placement, I could do none. And when I do that, it will just place it in text the way it is, right? I could do top, it'll kick it to the top, right? Auto, we talked about that, but essentially I could be more verbose and tell it I want to place that. So what's nice about columns is that when you say width, 100, it automatically will adapt to the actual width of the line. Okay, so what about side-by-side figures, right? We've done a placement of a few figures here. We haven't covered, so we did the SVG. Let's do the PDF. So let's do some side-by-sides, and I'll just use all the figures. How about that? So let's do side-by-side figures. Okay, and we'll make this on the next column. So we'll guess. We'll do 150. Okay, so now I'm on the next column. So I just guessed about where that is. So let's do some text, 20 lorems, and we can do a figure. So let's say I was doing it side by side. Well, I want 2 figures, but I want to say, so let's call this 2 figures of interest. So this is like a way you could do it if you wanted a single figure, but you wanted 2 images side by side. So the way I would do this, I would do a grid inside the figure, and I would say columns, and then I could do 2, or in this case, I could do 1FR, 1FR. And what that does is it fills the lines distant. So essentially, if I did 1 and 2, if I did 2FR, then I know the right-hand side is going to occupy twice as much space as the left. So if I do 1 on each, then I know it's equal on both. Then what I would do in this grid is I can put in two content blocks, and in one content block I'll put an image. So let's do the SVG one. So we'll do image dash SVG. And on the other block I'll do image, and it will be image dash, we'll do PNG. Okay. And then I want the width to be 100%. And I want the width on this one to be 100%. Okay, and there they are, stacked right next to each other. And I have a single figure that says what they are. Now, in this case, the images are like very tight to one another. So what you might want to do, and this is what I would do, is I would use what's called a column gutter. And then I would do like 1 EM, 1 character width of a letter M. And that would give you a little space between the two figures. But you see, look, I still have 100 and 100. And this is where the 1FR gets in. So because I've made each cell equal in size, this 1 EM just takes up a center distance, and then these adjust accordingly. So that's why I did it that way. Now, if you have images that are like, let's say I have like 50% width. I don't know why, but maybe you wanted to do 50% width, right? You might want to specify the alignment. So this, look how it looks kind of odd. We could do what's called an align feature, align, and I can do center, and then the first cell will be aligned. And let's just break this to another line. Right? And so now they're aligned center, but I could do align left, and it will kick it all the way to the left. I can go align right, and it will kick it all the way to the right. So I'm not sure why you would want to do this, but you have the power to do it. I generally would want to center these figures and make them at least as wide as I could, especially when you're doing double column. But if you're doing something like a full page width, then that might be different. Another thing I wanted to show you how to work around is how to do a subfigure. So let's do how to do a subfigure. Now it's not officially supported, so you might not like how I'm doing this. All right, we gotta spell doing right. So in this case, you're gonna do, let's do some lorem, and we'll do a figure. And I'll do a caption. We'll do 2 subfigures. Okay. So in this case, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a grid. And I'm going to do columns. And I'm going to do 1FR, 1FR. So far it looks the same. And then column gutter, we can do 1 EM just like before. And so then what I want to do is add a content block, 2 content blocks. Okay. And one's going to be for the first image. So we'll do image. In this case, we'll do the JPEG. Okay. So image dash JPEG dot JPEG. And in the second one, let's do the PDF. Image PDF.svg, because remember it converted it. Okay, so I have 2 subfigures, so this doesn't look all that different, right? It's I do need to make the widths 100%, and it should look identical to what we have above. Now the only difference is now I want to add captions for them. So I'm going to call this one A, and I want to call this one B. Now look, the text is like right up against the bottom, and I don't really like that. So what I need to do is I need to add a little bit of spacing. Okay, so what you can do is create an empty cell. One way to do this is just create an empty cell, right? But that didn't seem to do anything. The other is to adjust the column gutter, or the row gutter. Row gutter, 1EM. Right, and so what that did is that's made the gutter in between the figures fairly large. Now 1EM is a little much. We might do 0.6 or 0.5 or something like that. So it's a little bit tighter. And then in this way, in your caption, you could say two subfigures, right? A is a JPEG, and B is a PDF that was converted to SVG. All right, so this is one way to do that, right? And then if I was going to refer to these, I have to refer to the whole figure. So I could do in text, I could say, referring to fig subs, fig 7, there are, we'll do comma, subfigures. And we could say fig subs A, and in which we presented something interesting, and fig subs B, where something else interesting happened. So this is hard-coded, right? It's not linked. You'd have to make sure that you kept track of the A and the B. So that's why that's not amazing. But that's one way to do the workaround for subfigures. There are probably more advanced features, and what I probably will do is I'll just leave the code here on how to do this. And it defines a thing called subfigure, and it kind of has a supplement that it uses, but ultimately this is probably the easiest to understand. So probably just to press on without creating too long of a video, I'll put some more examples in this video with some documentation, but for now this is a really good workaround. Let's do a page break. Okay, so now we're on another page. So if we look at the lorem, it's still double column. So what I want to do is I want to show you a way to do a spanning page. So say that I have this one page, and I'm going to put a figure, and I want it to span both columns. Okay, this is going to be a little tricky because we need to just find a way to do this workaround. And this workaround, because there's no command that says break your columns now, you need to find a way to kind of address this issue. Okay, so workaround number 1. So let's do that. Okay, so one thing you can do when you're in the columns, you have this columns page, and I know that I'm going to be spanning it. The first thing I would do is I would set the page columns to be 1. Okay, and then so now that means a figure width. Now a figure width is the entire width of the page. So I'm going to do a line just to show you this. So I'll do a line of 100%. And see how the length of the line, we do 2 of them. The length of the line is the whole width of the page. This is always a good trick if you're ever curious like what the length of something is, like to do that trick. Okay, and then what I want to do is just take our figure from above, just for the sake of having something that's side by side. And I want to put it here. So let's get rid of the caption. And I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it here. So let's stick it right here. So I've got two figures, right? This is their width. They're fairly large. We can do something smaller. So there they are. In fact, you know what? Let's add some more images types and get rid of this. And we're going to do some more images. Okay. So we have JPEG, we'll do SVG, and we'll do PNG. Okay, so now I've got four figures, and I'm going to update the caption, some sample figures, right? So I've got sample there, and then I can type my text here. Now, if I type my text, it's going to be full width, which I didn't really want to do. I want it to be a double column. So what I need to do is do this column command, columns, and call it 2. And then in my blocks, I'll put my content. And what that does is everything remaining on this page break, is now going to be double column. So I can just pick up where I left off, and I could put any kind of content in here. I can make it, really long, 400, right? And it'll fill this page. And if I go to 500, right, it'll continue doing double column, right? It'll just keep going. And so, but if I start typing here outside of this, it goes back to one column. So, this is the issue. So the nice thing is you have this really nice control. You could basically keep this content going and going and going. Now I have to worry about spacing. It will automatically address that for you. And it will continue on to the next page. Unfortunately, when you go to pick it back up, you'll have to set the page columns to be 2 again, right? And as soon as you do this, it'll create a new page by default because you changed the type of format that the page is. So the trick is to size whatever text you're doing to be the right width or the right length, that when you go to switch pages, that it picks up and looks natural. This is why it's a workaround. It's not nicely supported, right? So this is an example of how to do that. A second workaround, we'll do workaround number 2. So we'll do this. So workaround number 2, say I want some content up top, then the figures in the middle, and then content at the bottom. Okay, so to do that, the way I would do it is I might create a box. So what I would do is I would create this thing called box. And in the box, I can choose the height. So height, let's make it 1 inch. So now I'm forcing the box width to be a certain height. And then I can do columns, and I can do 2. And now I'm going to put some text in here. Okay. Oh, let's set the page columns back to 1. Okay. So now I've got 2 columns of text. Okay. And then in the box, so I've got this text. I want to, maybe I just want to let's do a line. Like 100%. And then I'm going to create another box. But in this box, I'm going to add the figures. So let's just take this entire figure I just did before, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay. And then I'll add another line after the box. Okay. So So I'm going to clean up these parentheses. So this is for the figure, the grid. This is for the figure, and that's for the box. Okay. All right. So then I can do more text. So I can create a box of text. Pick this back up. Right, and then I can do, let's do more lorem. We'll do 200 lorums here. And we can do 100 lorem here. Right, and I forced it to be 1 inch, so we can just do auto. Right, and I can change the height of this box also. Auto. Okay, so what I've done, let's walk through this, is the first box is 1 inch tall. I've forced it to be that height. So picture like a big giant rectangle that's 1 inch tall. Everything's going to fit in there. So if there's overflow, it's just going to spill over. So, that's up to you, kind of figure that out. Now, if I did auto, this all kind of just breaks. It'll just keep filling until it fills the whole page. So in order to make this work, I need to make sure that the height is some specified number, right? So 2 inches, right? And then this will be automatic because it's only going to go a certain height, which is the figure. And then the remaining of this we could do auto because it's the remainder of the page, and that can just basically fill content. So we could do 200 lorem, but because it's a box, it can't really go anywhere, right? So you're forcing it. So maybe you don't want to do a box. Maybe you just want to pick up the lorem, right? And then do that in a columns block. So maybe I just do this. Oops. Just do this. And get rid of this box. Right. Hash. So then this will pick up and it will remainder will be columns. So apologies if this is confusing. But it's mostly confusing because this is a workaround and not supported by Typst. But the idea here is that the bottom is essentially 2 column text in a single column environment. So the page is actually only 1 column page. And I'm forcing this content to be 2 columns wide, or presented as 2 columns. This image here fits all between these lines, is the full width of the page because the page is 1 column. And then this one here is a box that forces a height. So, you would have to play around with the height parameter, maybe like 1.5, something like this, till it looks appropriate for this workaround to work. Okay, so this shows a couple workarounds for that. We talked about how to do subfigures in an unofficial way, right? So by hard coding. We talked about the different kind of formats that are supported and how to control the figure location and even the supplement that's used. So with that, I think this is a good video, and thanks for watching. If there's any questions or comments, please leave them below. Subscribe if you'd like, and I'll keep making content like this. And thanks again. All right. Bye.